What's up YouTube? Capital G here, talking about the ban list in this video, but I'm not going to be doing any full-on predictions or breaking down in deep detail every single card that I think needs to get hit and why and all that good stuff or any of that. I'm mainly going to be talking about why I don't believe we are going to be getting a new ban list or FNL list update in the TCG anytime soon. And when I say anytime soon, I mean it can be a long while before we see a ban list updates. And I'm really making this for some of the people who maybe don't still understand the gravity of the situation that is going on worldwide and how it's affecting Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. And when I made a post just like last week about Konami starting to cancel events, I said there's the last line, don't expect a ban list anytime soon, boys. And there were some people who were like, oh, come on, Cap G, this doesn't mean anything. Konami is still going to update the ban list, but I think that we all need to start being pretty real here and asking ourselves a couple of questions like, number one, why exactly would they update the ban list at this point? That's one of the biggest reasons why we really should not expect Konami to even be thinking about updating the ban list anytime soon in the TCG. It doesn't really make any sense. Obviously, one of the biggest reasons that Konami updates our FNL list is to try to balance a new format and to make competitive events more enjoyable, or try to get rid of some of the problems that previous competitive events might have had, whether it be FTKs or degeneracy with certain card interactions, etc., etc. They update the ban list. Maybe they try to tackle some of those problems, getting rid of some of those combos or cards, etc., etc. But right now, what would be the point of that? There are no competitive events, and obviously, Konami has extended that into the middle of May. I actually think that it's still completely on the table that they could extend that even to maybe the beginning of June, but we already know confirmed for the next 2 months, guys, there are no competitive events. So it's not like there's a real rush or need, because if they did give us a new ban list update on April 1st, there wouldn't be any events to play at for another 6 weeks. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, come on, Cap, what about all the hype that the ban list brings and the excitement and the energy and all the buzz to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community? And those are definitely side effects of the ban list that I'm sure Konami loves, because it gets players super excited about playing the game again when a format is stale or there's problems. Obviously, people get really excited when they think of a new format that can be anew. However, I don't really think that that's going to work. And under normal times, I think Konami would be super focused on trying to give us a really exciting and thorough ban list. In fact, you can make a legitimate argument that right now, the next 2 weeks, if we were under normal circumstances, could be one of the most hyped times in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, as we have a brand new master rule going into effect. We would have a brand new ban list going into effect. And then we have the massive, amazing dual overload, basically all in the span of like, what, 10 days or like a week or something like that. Like all of that being crammed together, basically we would all lose our collective minds. But right now it's not normal times, and even though Master Rule 5 is, you know, a great opportunity for Konami to get players super excited, it just doesn't really feel like it's going to work. Like even if Konami did drop a new ban list and you know, we have a bunch of cards moving and stuff like that, I feel like it's not going to create that much excitement when there's simply no events to play in. I mean, you're probably going to be really excited in the short term if you see something crazy happen, like maybe wind up carriers and mighty come off the ban list or something like that. But then you're going to realize after maybe you've gone out and bought the card, wait a minute, I still can't play at any actual events for the next 6 weeks. So what does it honestly matter? And that's why I don't think Konami's focus is going to be on pumping out a ban list anytime soon, especially when Konami themselves just need to be focusing on other things. They don't even know when they're going to be able to have, you know, competitive events again, when it'll be safe to actually host these events in Europe and Latin America and North America and stuff like that. So that's kind of another reason. I don't really think that it would make sense to try to generate a lot of fake buzz or fake hype with a new ban list when the ban list doesn't really serve a purpose at this point when we can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Now that I've talked about why I don't believe that we're going to be getting a ban list anytime soon and how that's probably not Konami's focus right now, because obviously it just doesn't really make any sense. Why give us a ban list list when there are no competitive events to play at. I want to go ahead and touch on when I think we will ultimately see an FNL list update and what the game plan probably is going to be from Konami, because assuming the coronavirus doesn't end humanity, like eventually things will get back to some semblance of normalcy. And while I believe that this is obviously a fluidly moving situation that could technically get worse, I think Konami is probably still wanting to have national season, and that's when I think we could probably see the next ban list for the TCG. Assuming that everything goes as well as possible, I think that Konami's game plan would probably be to have events start ramping up around June. Now, I really don't see a point of having the regionals come back for just a couple of weeks before you actually start having national events, and then the European Championship, the Latin American Championship, the WNACQ. It just doesn't really seem like it fills a purpose at that point. The regional season is basically over anyways, and it feels like a lot of hassle to try to, contact all the PTOs and basically squeeze in a ton of regionals in just a couple of weeks. So what I believe Konami probably is going to end up doing is maybe in June, when things are kind of back to normal and we're having those national events, basically drop a ban list right before the weekend for those events. And it's interesting because I actually think that they're not going to give us that giant, massive overhaul ban list that we might expect for Master Rule 5. The OCG obviously just had one of those where you saw a lot of cards that we know are going to be crazy good in Master Rule 5 end up getting hit. We saw cards like Trishula and TG Hyper Librarian, the Junk Speeder, the Instant Fusions. We saw basically Konami try to preemptively hit those cards before they could be fully exploited under Master Rule 5. But I don't think Konami would actually do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, this new ban list that Konami would have, basically just for national season, it would be only for theoretically one event. Like if you were just a normal player in the United States, the only event that you'd actually play with this new ban list for is just under the North American World Championship qualifier. That would basically be it, because we know after Worlds and after national season, there's like a 6-week period where there are no events. So you wouldn't have to worry if you're Konami about doing too little and kind of screwing up the entire format or screwing up the next 2 months of Yu-Gi-Oh, because that wouldn't be an issue. Same thing goes with you're a European player. Maybe you go to like German Nationals and then Euro Championship. That's only a couple of events. So basically, if Konami went with a smaller ban list right before national season, even if they didn't go far enough, it would only be 1 to 2 events that any given Yu-Gi-Oh player in the TCG would have the player under anyways. If you were lucky enough to end up going to the World Championship, that ban list is obviously crazy, and it's nothing like the TCG list anyways. Another reason that I don't think Konami is going to want to give us this giant Master Rule 5 ban list as our next FNL list updates is because they're probably going to think about it from a player's perspective. Let's just say that you're a typical competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player, but you're going to be playing at your German Nationals and then Euros or something like that. You probably haven't played at any competitive events by the time that June rolls around for maybe like 2.5, 3 months at that point. We've all just kind of been sitting around doing nothing. We haven't been going to regionals. We haven't been going to, the YCS circuit or anything like that. Do you really want players who haven't played the game for 2 or 3 months to come back and have this giant freaking wall of a ban list that it takes us a whole week to wrap our heads around? Probably not. Like, you want to kind of ease everything back. You want to let players be able to ease back into the competitive season, even if it is only going to be 1 event or 2. So I feel like there's a couple of reasons why Konami will probably want to give us a smaller list. You might see things like Glow Up Bulb or Steam the Cloak cards that we know probably should be banned because of needle fiber. We will probably end up seeing those cards maybe skate for a little bit of time. And then I think after the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship, when the regional circuit starts back up again in September, and events like YCS Hartford and Charlotte, when those events ultimately do take place later in the year, maybe in the fall, that's when I think Konami will give us another ban list right before that season kind of starts, and that will be our major ban list. That'll be essentially the ban list that we would have gotten in April. That's when we'll see things like Instant Fusion, the Junk Speeders, and all these other cards that we know are going to get exploited. That's when we'll probably see all of those cards end up getting hit. But eventually I will do that ban list prediction video. But again, I don't even think we're going to get a next ban list until probably June, and I think it's going to be a tiny one because it's only going to be for a couple of events anyways. But in conclusion, to summarize this video up, I don't think we're going to see a ban list in April because there's just no point. There aren't any Yu-Gi-Oh events. I think the next time we will see a ban list will probably be early June. I think that that'll serve as our national season list for just a couple of events. I think the list will be very, very small because Konami doesn't want to overwhelm the players who haven't been playing competitively, and it's only going to be for a couple of events. So if the ban list doesn't do enough, it's not that big of a deal. And then finally, I think that probably in the fall, maybe around like September or something like that, we'll get the massive list that we should have gotten in April. But obviously, there's just no point right now because there are no actual Yu-Gi-Oh events. Anyways, guys, those are just my thoughts and opinions. If you guys agree, disagree, let me know in the comment section below. Or what do you guys think about this situation? What are your predictions? When do you guys think that we will ultimately see a next ban list? And do you think that it's going to be big, small, anywhere in between? Leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.